Yes, prediction.
Pain.
We run the clock, Super 16, it's the cream of the crop. College football time of year, don't stop.
You're adding this guy.
Just another go dome with the courage, heart, skill, and will. Bringing you the best 16. Southern never played for the football fiends. Breaking the best 16 college teams. Football fans, it's the show of your dreams.
Ain't no bias, Chris Zorich breaking truth. Traded in the golden helmet in the past for a suit. With the tape, never lie, college ball, he's a stoop. Breaking the top 16, not the top 32.
I don't mean to cut you off like a Zorich jersey, but you ain't really grinding unless the jersey dirty. Hit the running back like a Mack truck behind the 30-yard line. It's game time, my team ride you off the sideline.
You look at Chris like this with a fact checklist, going over college teams like a big scientist. Steve streaking from his head like in his playing days. Super 16 polls on his show straight away.
It's the FBS, the best of the best from the ACC to the SEC. Pac-12, Big Ten, Mountain West, Sun Belt, and the Big 12. Open your eyelids, who the best like the clock. Super 16 is the cream of the crop. College football time of year, don't stop. With Christopher Zorich, just another go dome with the courage, heart, skill, and will. Bringing you the best 16. Southern never played for the football fiends. Breaking the best 16 college teams. Football fans, it's the show of your dreams.
Hello and welcome everyone to week 8 of the Super 16 poll show. We had some interesting things going on this week, but before we get to that, in college football, Phil Toshin, our what should I say, Chicago Bear TTNL god or overseer. I mean, I don't know what I mean. DDP doesn't do you justice.
Well, I'm definitely not a god.
No,
You
you're not. Okay.
might be closest right there.
Okay.
The
I'm just wondering,
three-time
man, 'cause
All-American.
Your rant was amazing.
Did you enjoy my Bears Hour live rant?
It was, I think it lasted an hour. Didn't it last an hour or something like that?
I don't even know how long it lasted because, you know, people come up with this idea that it's some sort of scripted shtick. And I'm like, you don't know me if you think that's
100% from the heart.
Exactly. There is no place. Remember, what did Dorothy? She had to click her heels and say, "There's no place like home."
There you go. No place like Soldier Field. No place like Soldier Field.
Yeah, Chris, it was honestly a very difficult watch for fans. But fans have every right to be upset with the empty promises, the lies, and all of the politics that it seems like you experienced as well as a player with the Chicago Bears. There's only but so much when technology comes into play that fans can be oblivious to. And in this case, I think the Chicago Bears are upset that the TTNL exists, because somebody's got to hold their feet to the fire. And listen, I just speak from my truthful place of football, and it has to get better. It needs to get better. And the Chicago Bears owe it to their fan base, who travel so well and are so loyal. The one thing you can do is be honest. And I think this coach falls victim not only to COVID and kind of like having to get out of that, you know, what we call it, the scope, and play victim today. Not saying he's lying. I'm just saying that's not going to take the pressure off of him.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? The reality is Bears fans really want to see, and they have every right, as well as myself, to see somebody who's prepared. What they saw on Sunday was a death match, really. You were out in, you know, it's like Tyson versus Lennox Lewis. It's like 30 seconds, you're out. And it can't be that way. with the Chicago Bears. It's so disheartening. It ruins people's weeks. What did that feel? What did it feel like to you? You know, I guess you're wired differently, but I know you spoke on players and you caring, but when you know that fans love this team so much so
right,
that the energy of your performance affects them. Now I know you have to like get over it, but does it affect you if you didn't play
absolutely.
well?
Absolutely. I mean, and there were times, I mean, I went through, I think my last 2 seasons with Dave Wannstedt, I mean, we were 4-12. Right. So the idea of trying to get fired up for a game was hard. And, you know, we had a coach at the time who didn't know, you know, anything about being a head coach. So, I mean, he was throwing out stuff that we were just, this is ridiculous. So it was almost like we were playing for each other. And it felt like high school or college at that point. You know, I mean, you're supposed to be a professional. I mean, everybody's supposed to be able to do their job. And you have a head coach that not really there for motivation, but just making crazy moves, you know, sitting folks who should totally be playing. It was just a really bad scene. And so right now in the locker room, you know, the hardest thing they're trying not to do is start pointing fingers. Right. Because as soon as you do that, you're going to lose the team and it's going to be worse. But I mean, it's one of those things where you have to take a look at it. And again, we've talked about this before with college, but literally you have to go back to fundamentals and make sure you have the individuals or the best individuals that can play. I mean, I know I shot you a text and said, hey, I just heard that the offensive tackle had COVID or was in the COVID protocol. And I'm like, this is like 2 hours before the game. How does that happen?
And Justin Fields didn't know about it either till the game. And then to not be prepared and play the kid Bars, who had been playing that second, like the extra tight end.
Right.
But he's been in the games. But we'll take this kid from the practice squad who basically hasn't played since preseason and put him against one of the best pass rushers in the. You couldn't make this up if you tried to make it up. And lo and behold, Chris, you don't even help the kid. You don't even chip for him.
There's a reason the dude's on the practice squad. He's just not ready yet.
He's not.
Right? Regardless if he was a first-year guy or whatever, but there's a reason why he's on the practice squad. You just feel he's not ready, and you need a body for practice. Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, have at it.
Yeah, Lachavius, let's put you at right tackle. You're going to block Shaq Barrett today. And then you're going to block our guy, what's his name? Pierre Paul. they're just teeing off on Justin Fields. I mean, in the NFL and in any, and this would be my last point, in any game, but especially in the NFL where these are men and they're coming off the edge on a young quarterback, blindsiding him, knocking him down, knocking the football out, it's going to turn the tides of the game. That's why they pay those pass rushers millions of dollars. And your plan was to put this guy out there and block one-on-one. Forget the fact that you started him. I'll even let that go. The fact that you started him without understanding we got to help him is a show. This coach should be gone. Sorry, coach. I hope you get better. And by the way, here's your pink slip. That's how it should be. And that's how this team should be moving forward, because it's the same old BS. It's the same old Bears BS. And Ted Phillips and Gentleman George, and all this politics and corporate world and cute little slogans don't win football games. They don't. You got to get a maniacal head coach in there. It's the most important thing in football is the head coach. Without it, you are, like Chris is telling you, Dave Wannstedt, it's going on deaf ears. And my father said it. I think you saw him. It's like, these guys aren't playing for him. They didn't care. And it's unfortunate because Justin Fields is the kid that's getting neglected in this whole process. Right. And that's why they need to do better. And that's why I'm asking everyone to hashtag fire Nagy. Hashtag it up, keep getting it going, and really get a better job. There's some college coaches that really could do a better job with this football team and a talented roster, Chris. It should never have looked like that, but it has, and it has several times. And this has looked worse than the Cleveland game when you didn't think it could get worse.
Right, exactly. No, I would have to agree with that one.
But yeah, that's my mini calm rant tonight. I was going to be calm until
For
Wednesday
those
night.
folks who haven't seen the actual rant, please check it out at Bears Hour Live. I mean, it's something special to see.
Well, I appreciate it, Chris. You are the man. Every week, this guy comes on here, no bias. Chris Zorich speaking truth, just like the lyric says on the Super 16 poll show. Every Monday night, we changed the hours to help families in need, and specifically mine.
Specifically? Yes, exactly.
This show's brought to you by the National Football Foundation, College Football Hall of Fame, who, by the way, Chris Zorich is a College Football Hall of Famer, and the Football Writers Association. And we got more people wanting to be a part of this amazing show. And we'll be talking about that maybe next week after I meet with this guy.
I think
there's a lot of exciting things.
Or you froze. I'm assuming it was me.
Yes, you are frozen.
Oh, man, don't tell me that.
Did you hook in? Did you bring your cord down?
I got everything, man. Everything's all set.
Yeah,
this should not be happening, man.
Froze a couple times. I felt like I was, what was that song from Frozen? I can't be.
Yeah, I was
trying to think of it, but
my daughter's 19. I don't know. I didn't even see it. Sorry.
You never saw Frozen?
I have. I mean, I don't need, I'm
Look
52,
at this stuff. No, that's the wrong one. I'm singing The Little Mermaid or something.
Same one, exactly.
Let it go.
Look
at Cherie. I better let it go right now. Let me let Chris go and do his thing every week, though. He gives you the unbiased look at the top 16 college football teams in the country. This is an amazing sport. Probably my favorite thing in the world is college football, with the bands, the rivalries, the upsets. And believe me, we had some exciting football, right?
Stuff this week. Yes, we did.
Stuff to talk about tonight.
So let's shoot and let's actually take a look at last week's. Do we have last week's week 7 of our poll? Just to let folks know where we're at. So we had Purdue. Obviously, Purdue had an amazing game against Iowa. That was awesome. We had Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Wake Forest, Michigan, Oklahoma State. Michigan State's on this great run right now. Penn State was doing well. As I said before, Iowa lost that game against Purdue, Oregon, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Cincinnati. Number 2, Alabama, and number 1 was Georgia, and they had a bye week. So let's assume what is going to happen in week 8. But we start off with number 16.
Number 16, Iowa State.
So we have an unranked team coming in. Their debut at 16. They knocked off number 10, Oklahoma State. It was a close game, and I'm giving them credit because it was, Oklahoma State should have won that game, but they didn't. And it's interesting because I don't know if Iowa State's that bad or if they're that good. They lost to Iowa by 10, and their only other loss was to Baylor by 2. So they're actually a pretty good team. And they could actually run the table, but unfortunately on November 20th, they have they actually play Oklahoma. So in the Big 12, it's kind of crazy, but I think Iowa State kind of got themselves on the map by beating a number 10 Oklahoma State team. So it's going to be interesting to see how they run, but they have Texas up next. So let's take a look at the team that they beat at number 15.
Number 15, Oklahoma State.
Now, they actually dropped 5 spots down to 15. I don't think they weren't ready. And here's the thing. They actually played some really decent teams, and they actually beat them. I mean, they were going in this game. They were 6-0 going into this game. So I thought they were really going to do well. And literally the only thing they can kind of wait for right now is the Battle of Bedlam, because they don't play anyone else who's going to be ranked until they play Oklahoma. And that's really going to have a chance to kind of, if they beat Oklahoma, then they may have a chance to really kind of have a great season. But right now, I mean, losing to an unranked Iowa team is really tough. And then when you look at it, let's see. Yes. Oh, as a matter of fact, yes. Thank you for bringing that one up, Richard. I mean, outside that touchdown, but also there was that celebration play that actually was terrible. Phil, I don't know if you had a chance to see that.
Oh yeah, Shane actually sent it to me.
Okay.
And I'm like, wait a second, what did he do? What in the world? Chris, the officiating is a real issue. And
here's the thing, just to give you a precursor to my thought of the day, it's going to be on officiating. So
okay, I don't want to ruin it for you.
We spent a couple minutes talking about that when we get there, but I just want to know if you saw it. I mean, that was...
I did see it, and
that was really unfair.
That's completely ruining a kid. Like, I'm not joking with you. When I say this isn't Al Bundy-esque going back, but officials took away 2 games from my high school career that would have put us in the state championship undefeated. Back in the inadvertent whistles. Now that's like a mistake on the option. They thought the fullback had the ball and the quarterback pulled, so they blew the whistle dead, supposedly. So it was back-to-back weeks. So I know all about officials. So when people see me on Sundays or Saturdays ranting about officiating on my Facebook or whatever I'm writing, it is a personal thing, because I know you could be better than what they are. And what they did to that young man was personal. It was disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no place for that, because every kid has an opportunity to be corrected by an official. Hey, bro, don't do that again.
Sure.
You're helping a kid.
Right, exactly.
You pull them aside. Instead, you took a touchdown away from them. Come on. That was ridiculous. I'm sorry. But yes, I did see it.
That's why we're going to have a chance to rant about it or talk about it in the thought of the day section. But I just think that the only real the best chance Oklahoma State has really is they're going to have a chance to beat Oklahoma. But other than that, they're going to win the rest of the schedule. And they have Kansas coming up. The Kansas-Oklahoma game, I'm going to talk about that later. That was kind of embarrassing as well. I'm not going to say Kansas is a good team, but I don't know what the heck is going on in the Big 12. So let's just move on to number 14.
Number 14, Penn State.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest, craziest games, longest game in the NCAA history, 9 overtimes. Phil, this was insane.
It was crazy. I was watching it on my phone at a Halloween thing going on, and I'm going crazy trying to get other people to react with me. I can't believe, but I didn't realize the new rule either. Like, it's conversions.
Right.
So I didn't know of that switch. So when they went into over,
I'm all for what they're doing.
You like
which it. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, because it's going to change it up a little bit, right? Because everybody's going to kick field. I mean, you can spend eons kicking field goals from 25-yard line, right?
Right.
And so after, I think it's 2, right? After twice.
Oh, it's the third one. After the third overtime, they switch it up to the 2-point conversion.
Exactly. And how many coaches practice 2-point conversions, right? Or on the team schedule, you may get one on Thursday, and that's the only thing, right? So now you got to throw that in after seeing this crazy horrendous. I mean, it was insane, and I'm not sure exactly what the time was on the game, but I mean, I'm sitting there talking to my friends. I'm going like, this is insane. I've never seen this before. And like I said, it was the longest game at 9 overtime. That's 9 overtimes. That's crazy.
It was awesome to watch it, to be perfectly honest, because it was like I compared it to those two. There was one fight when I was a kid, and I can't even remember the fighters, but they were just going at each other, and they were exhausted. And you as a fan are just in awe of the effort. Still, they're putting in the effort. Both schools fighting back and forth. Who is going to win and who is going to come out victorious? It really puts. I used to play this video game back in the 80s called 10-Yard Fight. I don't know if you remember that.
No, I don't remember that.
It was at the arcade. Crash Busters. This guy, hut. And then you're so. But anyway, it felt like an old school, feel to it because they were going back and forth, and who was going to withstand this? And you're just pulling for Illinois because there's just no way they should be in this game, but they were. But they were, and then for them to be victorious, it was crazy.
Well, I would have felt a lot better had the teams been like ranked 8th and 9th and 7th. I mean, I just feel that and this is where when you look at Illinois' record, I mean, there's no way they should have been there,
right?
And you look at what Penn State was able to accomplish. I mean, they actually had they wound up, who they beat in the beginning? They kind of put them on the map. Was it?
Who, Penn State?
Yeah. It was,
I'll check it for you.
Wait, it was, no, it wasn't Oregon.
So Penn State. Oh, it doesn't give me all their games. What the heck?
What's called ESPN? You never heard of ESPN?
Usually this gives me all the games.
Okay.
So they beat Wisconsin, Ball State, Auburn.
Yes, that's who it was. Right.
Beat Auburn.
Right. So they have a chance to be. I mean, this is speed against strength and everything. So you would think after. I mean, Illinois. Come on, man. I mean, they wound up losing to. Well, first of all, they were a 2-5 team before the game. Now they're a 3-5. They wound up losing to a Conference USA team, USTA. So, I mean, how could Illinois stand in there? But again, we talked about this 1,000 times. On college football, any given Saturday, like literally, we've seen it before, and we actually had a chance to see it. I think last week, 2 weeks ago, when Coastal Carolina. They wound up losing to App State, and that was the first time since they beat Michigan. Sorry, Rick. 5,000 years ago. So now, hopefully, Rick is like, well, at least now they beat Coastal Carolina, so that'll hopefully take up for the Michigan when they lost to Michigan. But again, surprised, a little upset because I like Penn State. Like the teams, did not like the uniforms. There we go. Oh, sure. I didn't know. Hey, there you go.
Is that the University of Texas, San Antonio?
Of course.
Oh my
God. Who else
God.
is it going to be? SA.
Listen, they're the Road Runners, right?
The
Road Runners. I didn't know
Watch out.
Cherie went there.
Beating Illinois. All right. So that's my kind of rant for Ohio State. Now, Penn State. They have a huge test. Obviously, they're going to be playing Penn State next week, so we're going to see what's going to happen. But again, I had high hopes for Penn State in the beginning of the year, and 9 overtimes to a 5-2 Illinois team. I just, at some point, you just have to say sorry, get back to work and practice. So let's move on to number 13.
Number 13, Kentucky.
This is an easy one. Kentucky had a bye, and they wound up staying at 13. Not one of those, depending on kind of who was around him. Again, we've talked about how their year, it's a great year for them. I mean, I'm calling it kind of one of those fairy tale years, that seasons that they have a chance to really kind of remember how the season was, but hopefully they have a chance to kind of stay on course. Now, later on, they're going to play some tough teams. They wound up already losing to Georgia, but they got Mississippi State up next, and that should be a good one, but they really didn't move anywhere because of the bye. So let's go to number 12.
Number 12, Texas A&M.
Now, this is cool because Texas A&M, they wound up moving up 3 spots to 12 because they beat a really bad South Carolina team, 44-14. But again, it's an SEC team. They obviously do have some athletes, but I'm encouraged because after beating Alabama, I really wouldn't put anything past them at this point. Now they can kind of win out, and if they can, then they can kind of prove that they need to be a contender. They have a bye week, then they have Auburn and Mississippi. So it's going to be a really interesting season for them. But they only moved up 3 spots again because they played kind of an okay South Carolina team. But again, they're supposed to beat them. They're not ranked. And going into it, I think South Carolina was like 2-5 or something like that. So let's talk about number 11.
Number 11, Ole Miss.
Now, I'm kind of excited about the head coaching situation here, Phil. I mean, it's kind of fun. We have a guy in Lane Kiffin who literally, I don't know if people know or remember this, but 2 years ago, he was at Florida Atlantic. And now he is.
This guy moves around.
But he's doing it though, right? I mean, he's winning.
Yeah. I have you watched the ESPN Plus show Inside Ole Miss?
I have not. Is that something I should check out?
Yeah, it's really good, actually. Okay. It really it's like Hard Knocks.
Okay.
It's that same kind of thing, but it's more college football based, and they tell stories of each player. Like the last story was the wide receiver.
Something currently going on now.
Yeah, it goes on within the season. So it's really, and it shows Lane, talking smack, but seeing the kind of personality he has. I like that dude. He's somebody I could see why players resonate with him because he keeps it 100 with them. And, he backs it up. They show when they lose to Alabama and Nick and how much it meant to him to win that game. So it takes you inside the locker room as well as the dorms and the traditions of who they're playing. Really good.
Life? Well, and here's the thing that's kind of interesting on my end. Because I like his personality, even though he's kind of a crackpot sometimes. I mean, he really gets his guys fired up. So that's what I like. But, going from Florida Atlantic 2 years ago, getting this job, like currently he is second in the SEC West.
Yep. And
there's only 21 points separate him from they lost to Alabama 42-21.
Right.
So there's only 21 points that kind of separate him and Nick. And this is probably the guy that outside of Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, this is a guy that's probably gotten closer, but also has a chance to kind of be in the same division and literally right now has a chance to kind of, be up there with Nick. So I think that's great.
He's doing it smart, Chris, because he's doing this thing on ESPN Plus. He's very, what we'd say, modernized himself. He's a character. So he relates to these kids and they really like to play for him. You could see that it matters and he's authentic. And even though he's been around, they even, showcased his past where he went to Tennessee and left there and USC.
Right.
And, are you afraid that this guy's going to do that to your program? That's the thing. But I think that this is where he wants to be and the players really resonate with it. So it's interesting because they're having a good football season and I think he's found his maturity. Like this is where he's at. So it's really cool to watch that. But at the same time, the product on the field is what they're bringing to the table.
Right.
They're playing some good football. So
definitely
check it out.
When you're losing to Nick Saban by 21, that's not a bad thing, Right. And the interesting thing, though, you talked about inside Ole Miss. Now his name is being tossed around for the LSU job.
LSU, USC again.
Yeah.
Even the Chicago Bears have mentioned his name, according to a few sources.
That would be really interesting.
You imagine him with the Bear.
Oh my God. I can't. He was so out of it that he definitely would not be a good match for the Bears.
Well, maybe that would be the match.
Maybe the Raiders, but not the Bears. I think his personality is too large. Way too large.
But that's what Ditka had. And they won.
But
they need that.
That was 30 years ago.
I know, but they need that.
Right, but they're not gonna get somebody with that big of a personality.
But that's the problem, Chris.
That is the problem. That is absolutely the problem.
You got to put winning first. That's what these schools are trying to do.
Absolutely.
But anyway, that's the Bears' problem.
And Ole Miss' next opponent is Auburn, so that should be a good matchup. But I'm telling you guys, keep an eye on Ole Miss. If they have a chance to win that, it's going to be really,
I like
really
the quarterback too.
Yeah,
I like the quarterback.
Yeah, he has some gumption, and I think some folks are talking about his name in a little Heisman hunt, at least halfway through the season.
Yeah,
talking about that. So
he's one of who he reminds me of, like Jake Plummer. Remember Jake the Snake?
Oh my God, yeah, wow, yeah.
Just in moments, he's able to sneak out, make the throw at the last second, make a play, slick, athletic, more athletic than you think. Throws a nice ball.
And I think what's also cool is that eventually, I know I did it at Notre Dame. Eventually, the players take on the personality. Head coach who has that type of personality, who's maybe just a square peg that's not fitting in the round hole, that's not a bad thing.
I 100%.
As long as any rules aren't being broken and folks are going to jail.
We're having a bad night with Chris's internet again.
Damn it. See?
Ron G might have to come over there.
Totally might have to come over now because I thought I had it prepared perfectly. Hello, Kathleen. Thank you for hanging out with us. What I was just saying was the players take on the personality of the coaches. And, as long as people aren't getting hurt, guys are going to jail, having a quirky personality is okay.
I totally agree with you. I think that's what a football team needs, is a maniacal guy that has a big personality.
Sure.
Also, the thing that I like about Lane and coaches like Lane is that they own it.
Right.
They own it.
Right.
Matt Nagy on Sundays blaming a 22-year-old subtly. But that did not sit. It's still not sitting well with me. Like, I almost want to fly back out, stay at the Zorich house overnight, and drive to Lake Forest.
Lake Forest and have a one-on-one with them.
Yes. I don't care if you got COVID. Step out of the car.
Come outside.
I want to talk to you.
That's
awesome.
Because
that's ridiculous what he did. And coaches that do that, Chris, they lose respect.
Right.
And I think Lane has that respect from his players. And maybe he's had to learn from his mistakes all along the way.
Sure, and that's why, I mean, being in a situation, having the hiccups, having the issues that he had,
right?
I think just makes him a better coach. I mean, makes him more relatable. And
he
he
would
can
have
go
been
back and say, man,
perfect.
you know what? I screwed up here. You know, these are my faults.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not perfect, you know, blah, blah, blah.
He would have been perfect at the University of Miami. I saw Alex was
That would have been nice.
Oh my God.
That would have been fun.
Talk about recruiting.
That would have been fun. Wow.
I know. They messed up there, Alex.
Yes, they did.
What's his name? What's his name real quick from
who's that?
The 2 Live crew? What's his name?
Luke.
Luke. Yeah. Old
Luke
man
something.
Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, Luke Skywalker. There you go.
He messed up recruiting Lane over there. He should have got Lane. Anyway.
All right, let's move on to number 10.
Number 10. Wake Forest.
And this is a fun one. This is great. They're having a magical year. Forget about the fairy tale. It's magical at this point because the next opponent is Duke. You know they're going to win that one. But when was the last? Well, actually, I do have that stat. I don't. Darn it. I was wondering when the last time Wake Forest was in the top 10. And interesting enough, kind of undefeated. But they're currently the best team in the ACC, which they own. I mean, you know, they're throwing up 70 against Army, but again, you know, if this is the best that the ACC has, I think it's going to be a rude awakening for Wake Forest at the end of the year, because at the end of the year they actually play Clemson, and I think this will be a great opportunity for Clemson to not only reclaim the ACC title, but they'll have a chance to kind of let them know kind of that Clemson is still the big boy in the conference, and that, you know, the fact that you won a couple games this magical year or whatever is, you know, it's beside the point.
Update, they've never made it into the top 10.
Never.
In hold on, I had it. 1947.
Oh, hello.
They were 11th. That was as close as they got at one point. And then their best record ever was 11-3, and that was 2006. They finished 14. That looks like their best record that they ever had.
And God bless them. I mean, it's great for them. I mean, because I'm sure they probably had some crazy like 0-12 seasons and just kind of some really rough times. So the fact that they have a chance to kind of ride this wave, and I'm sure you know, the bookstore and their online store is always going to be crowded, you know, on game days and stuff like that. I'm so happy for them, but it's challenging, I'm sure, in the ACC, because the ACC folks are like, damn, they won again, and they're like, this is the best we got to offer. It's like, oh, I mean, because you remember what Dabo said. We talked about this before, but because they were talking about kind of ranking power teams,
right? And
they were saying, you know, basically, Dabo was like, hey, I can only play the people in my conference. I can't go out of my conference. And the fact that, you know, we're whipping them, and the fact that they're not ranked, I really can't do anything about it. The only thing I can do is take care of my team, take care of my players. But at the end of the year, you know, do you is that prohibited on his part? Because I mean, he's doing the best he can, but his conference isn't that great. So that's what kind of his argument was.
Right. I mean, you only can play who you got, and that's part of this game. It's unfortunate because, let's be honest, some of these SEC teams get over on reputation of the league when, you know, you get the bowl season, they're getting whooped by, you know, Texas, San Antonio as well. So let's just keep it a buck there. But listen, don't take anything away from Wake Forest.
No, I'm excited for them. I mean, it's a great year for them, and I think it'll be magical. But
Brian Piccolo played there. I forgot.
There you go.
Jim Summers.
I need to get my award.
Yeah, you forgot it this week.
Forgot about that. Yes.
It's all right.
Let me write that down. Piccolo Award.
Next week will be Halloween week.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to ask you to do something a little unique.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to do 9 and 8 back to back.
Back to back. You
Back
ready?
to back.
Somebody's got anything to say about these two?
Number 9, Michigan. Number 8, Michigan State University.
Now, Phil, how awesome is this going to be? This is.
I heard he turned to my son. I'm like, we're watching that on Saturday.
This is going to be huge. The last time they were both ranked in the top 10 was 1964. And, I mean, this game, I mean, you know, we're used to Michigan, Ohio State. I mean,
right.
we're used to some different type of rivals. But you're talking about Michigan State. Hey, this could be a new thing. But the fact that they're playing for the Paul Bunyan Trophy, which I had to look up because I had no idea what they're going to play for. But it's a big old Paul Bunyan Trophy.
Bunyan.
Yes.
The Bunyan Award.
But this is, I mean, I'm pumped. I am excited, and it's going to be a week away.
You're going to watch it with your boy?
College game day is going to be here. I'm going to see because I mentioned he's a chef. And if the Bears are home, he's probably going to be cooking for the Bears.
They are home.
They are. I don't know if you have a chance to see it then. But it's going to be the early game, I think, right?
I think it's on at 4. No, it's on at noon. It is on at noon, right?
Okay.
Let me double check because
I would love to have a chance. So, Rick, this is if you're watching,
Big Rick,
please tell your wife that I'm either going to come over there, or you can come over here, and we can check it out. But I mean, this is going to be a huge game.
That is 12 p.m.
It's at noon. There you go. See, it's
going to
be. And it's. I'm excited.
That's 11 o'clock your time.
I'm getting. Oh, I know, man. I'm getting pumped. I'm getting pumped already. I was writing stuff up. As college game day is going to be. This is going to be insane.
Mel Tucker versus Jim Harbaugh, the two Bear connections there.
There you go. See, they got so much.
They got so many layers in this game. Cherie's going to be fired up.
Hey,
go blue. Michigan State. Who do you
think?
Do you have a prediction? Do you have a prediction for this game, Chris?
I mean, I'm gonna jump on the Michigan State coattails.
Oh,
sorry, Rick. Please don't be upset, but their performance overall just is not that impressive. And I love Rick dearly. And after the game, he texted me and he's like, "Man, I don't know where they're gonna be in your Super 16 poll." He was kind of joking, but because they beat Northwestern by 35, but they had a couple of bad plays. So
they did put a whooping on Northwestern. This running back starting to get hot from Michigan too. Number 2 there, the little guy. He's running hard. So this is going to be an interesting game. Jim Harbaugh. I'm just a huge Jim Harbaugh fan. If I had my choice, who I would pick to coach the Bears, it would be him, because I think he is a maniacal,
that would
crazy.
Be interesting.
Oh my God, he would put the McCaskies and everybody on blast, and every reporter. Everything would be about winning a Super Bowl. Those are the guys you got to hire. And Jim Harbaugh, he's proven. He did it with San Francisco 49ers.
Right, yeah.
I remember when he was coming out of San Diego State, I was like, get someone here that knows offense, prides himself on offensive line play, power football. These things are the Chicago Bears. I mean, how many times are you going to try to find the next guru and it never happens?
Bingo, exactly.
It never happens. It doesn't happen. So how about stick with what works? Let's do that. That's what I would say. So Jim Harbaugh, everyone always asks. Zorich has to hate University of Michigan. He did go to Notre Dame after all. Don't underestimate Michigan. Something is different about this year. Well, there's a lot of layers to this. It's like
here's the thing,
question
Joey.
And a comment.
Right. Well, thank you very much. Actually, Joey, I do not hate Michigan because I never lost to them. So how can you hate a team that you never lost to? So, I got no problem with Michigan. I think they're a great program. I mean, Notre Dame thinks they're a great program. They copy their stadium. So there's much respect between those two teams. Personally, I wish that we played Michigan on a yearly basis. When I was in school, that was always the first game of the year. And we knew that starting day one, you had to put your big boy pants on if you wanted to finish the season on top. And we had some great battles. And there's some great players on Michigan. There's some great players on Notre Dame's team. But this year, I just think I'm on the Mel Tucker Spartan bandwagon. I have a buddy, Aaron, who's a huge Michigan State fan. So along with him, I'm going to.
Chris froze for a second there. Along with
go
him.
Sparty. Sorry, go Sparty. I'm sorry.
Go.
So let's move
I'm going Michigan.
There you go.
I'm going Michigan.
Okay, all right.
Cherie.
Score?
Cherie. I'll score. Score, I'm going to say, because it's going to be a battle.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I'm going to say it's going to be 24-21 Michigan.
Wow.
24-21 Michigan. There's my prediction for that game.
I'll say a field goal.
That's what I said.
I know,
but you're going the other way.
Score. Well, no, I don't care what score. Right. I mean, I don't care what score. I just think it's going to be
17-14, or is it going to be a higher score? 35-30, 35-32?
I think folks will be bored out of their mind if it was like 14-17 or something like that.
You would
be really, really upset about that.
Look, Joey predicted that.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. We got to.
All right. So that was kind of crazy. I know I apologize about that, Phil. I just kind of threw that on you. Wanted to combine 9 and 8 because I thought it was going to be kind of cool. So let's move to number 7.
Number 7, Iowa.
All right. Nothing spectacular here. They actually stayed at number 7 because they had a bye. And hopefully they're licking their wounds from that crazy loss against Purdue, which we saw Purdue ranked for the first time in my poll, or Super 16 poll, and they wound up losing literally the next week to Wisconsin. So obviously just a flash in the pan, but I wanted to commend and give the respect to Purdue for beating, and at that point it was a number 2 Iowa team that I had. So kudos to Purdue, but we see they only lasted a week. But hopefully Iowa the guys in the locker room practicing, going over fundamentals, being upset, and they're going to take it out on Wisconsin, who's their next opponent. So let's move on to number 6.
Number 6, Oregon.
Now, some kind of new. They wound up staying at 6, even though they barely beat UCLA. And again, this is where it gets frustrating as a pollster, but also as a former player. I mean, you're supposed to beat teams like this. You're not supposed to just barely beat them. And again, I hate bringing up teams in the SEC, but you got teams like we talked about Texas A&M, right? They went out and beat South Carolina 44-14. I mean, they showed kind of their prominence. They showed their dominance over a team. And oftentimes, there are a lot of teams that just can't do that. Now, when Oregon's playing a lesser opponent, that happens. But when it's a conference opponent, then all of a sudden it may be different. Tavion, what's his next name? Thibodeau. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. He, at that point, really hadn't showed up. He had Saturday, he had 9 tackles, 2 sacks. I mean, he's now, after he's healthy now, having the chance to really kind of make that defense a lot better, but also have a chance to go on and play on the next level. But he has a couple games left. So it's frustrating because when you look at their one loss, it's against Stanford, who, of course, lost 2 games after that. After they beat Oregon, they wound up losing 2 games after that to some really bad teams. And so, it's sad that they finally, after all these years, had a chance to have a Pac-10 prominent team that we knew was going to have a chance to make it into the college football playoff rankings, but they wound up losing against Stanford. That's just going to make it look bad. So, but they are in the process of climbing back up. I know I had them lower before, but stayed at 6. I just hope that they don't kind of just think about this game and say, hey, had we not performed so poorly, where would we have gone? So their next opponent is going to be Colorado. So let's move on to number 5.
Number 5, Oklahoma.
Now, I think this may be the first time we've done this, but Oklahoma actually dropped down 1 spot to number 5 because they barely beat a 1-5 Kansas. That's really the frustrating part, right? Is that, they were in there for a while. And Phil, I know you shot me a text and you were like, Oklahoma, what is going on with them?
I know. I was watching that game too. And listen, this is football. Like any time you line up, you never know, especially this season. The only team that's really been consistent has been Georgia and Michigan and Michigan State. Those, even Cincy has had some hiccups here in the midst of games. They've ended up pulling through, which can help a football team. But OU, they were on the ropes. So how do you look at it, though?
I'm not sure what team is going to show up.
Yeah, especially because, the Heisman kid, Rattler, he gets benched. We all know the story and the triumphant moment that he comes in and plays.
For Caleb Williams.
Yeah, Caleb.
Yeah.
What was the game he came in and just rallied them and then
it was
what game was that? Texas?
Texas game, yep.
Texas, in front of the whole state.
In front of everybody. Everybody's watching that game.
Everybody's watching.
He threw up like 500 yards. I mean, it was amazing. And then this game, so here's the thing about this game. He threw up 170. This game didn't do that well, but I think the great play he had was when he heads up play, grabbed the ball from the running back's hand and actually made the first down, which I thought was great.
Oh my God. Talk about changing a possible...
Oh, by the way, he's a freshman. Yes. How cool is that?
Being that heads up, changing the whole...
My dog just came in.
It's okay. Changing the whole dynamic of that game. If he doesn't make that play, there's a possibility you lose.
Again, that's the frustrating. That's why they're dropping 1 because who's showing up?
Who's showing up?
What are the whys?
What are the whys? What are the whys?
And they have to be. I can't imagine how Riley's feeling the head coach because even the first game of the year, they had a hard time beating Tulane. I think that was the first game. So it's just I don't know who's going to show up. They have Texas Tech, who does not have a head coach apparently. I don't know what happened there. I think they were 5. They were they doing well?
They were doing well, and then I think they in another poll. Not the Super
16.
Oh,
fair enough. I like
they were at 21 at one point, according to sources. And our guy, your former teammate, the alum, he's still living his Texas Tech, Lemuel Stinson. Shout out to him and his speedy recovery. I know he's laid up in surgery. He might be watching tonight, Lemieux.
I hope so. Wouldn't that be nice? Lemieux, what up, man?
Yeah, hopefully you feel better, bro.
There you go.
Our prayers are with you, but yeah, Texas Tech. How are they going to do without a coach?
They're not going to have a coach, but yet apparently, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, they got the other team. They got they had a hurricane, and they wound up coming out and actually almost beating, the host team that they were nice enough to paint the logo and everything else, making a home game. So who knows? All right, let's move on to number 4.
Number 4, Cincinnati.
Okay, Phil, just when I thought I was going to do this for the first time, there's another time. They actually drop a spot to number 4.
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
Cincinnati, Navy. Now, mind you, they've been throwing up points, man, and this is what I talked about last week, is that they're showing their dominance. They want to tell them, hey, guys, we belong in the college football the college football playoff rankings. This is why we belong, because we can put up points.
The Super 16 poll show rankings.
And now they beat Navy by 1 touchdown. And I got my little notes here. It was the last couple. I froze?
No, I said it was close.
Oh, yes. So here's my play-by-play. The last in 50 seconds of the game, Cincinnati's up by 7. Navy kicks an onside kick, and of course, because Navy's so disciplined, they actually get the ball.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, the quarterback throws an interception, so the game wound up being over. But the fact that they recovered the ball and the fact that they took them into the fourth quarter down by 7, and I had them ranked 3, man. I had them ranked up there high. We talked about this. I was on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
I'm starting to have doubts.
Having doubts. But I'll tell you this. I've mentioned those service academies over the weekend on BHL. That's where they're teaching fundamentals. And that's where they're able to beat these bigger schools, because they're practicing and preaching the fundamentals. That's why into the fourth quarter, you see that team in that game. Same with Army. They had Wake on the ropes. But, you got to pull through, play disciplined football. But to your point, you got to drop them. I agree with it. I agree with where you're going.
Here's my question to you, Phil.
Yep.
Do you think this would affect, let's say they went out. Do you think this one game, a 7-point win over Navy, do you think that's going to have make the folks, the college football playoff rankings, think that they can't, that they don't belong in the top 6?
Unfortunately, I feel like these blog boys that rank these teams allow that stuff. Whereas I look at each game is the deck is set. That was Navy Super Bowl.
Right.
So you're getting your best shot there on Cincy. So for me, for you to pull out and be victorious off an onside kick, they made a play. Obviously, it could have been a different outcome. But the fact is they won the game. I think you shouldn't affect that football team. But unfortunately, how they do things, it's almost like the NFL's, point system and getting an extra pick in the draft. No one knows the mathematical equation for it.
Right.
So here, how these guys rank these teams to playoff is, how many points did you score? So it almost sets the deck where you got to blow everybody out in order to. I don't like that. I just like, where's your record? How are you performing? And did you win? Those are the things that should be set in the deck. And again, that's just how I believe Chris Zorich would do it with his Super 16 poll show. And that's what you're doing here. You dropped them, but you're not saying they're not playoff worthy because they're still in your top 4.
Absolutely.
So that's what I like to see. Now, had
But
they
some folks
lost,
would-
if they lost, you would have dropped them down. You would have been out, or would they be like 11?
No, they'd be like 11 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
They wouldn't drop out because, again, I think they're a good team, but
Right.
you have to be a good team. You have to show up.
Right.
And it's kind of interesting because if we can move on to number 3, I got some stuff to tell you about number 3 as well.
You ready?
Number 3, Ohio State.
Now, this is going to be really controversial. It's going to be the most controversial point on the Super 16 poll show, right?
Poll show.
How does let me see, they were
One
Ohio
loss.
State was 5. How did they jump over an undefeated Cincinnati, right?
Yep.
Hey, all right. So here it is. Ohio State is consistently beating. Now, also, you got to understand that, and here's where I admire Ohio State in our poll,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That they started top 5 or top 3, I think, but they wound up going down as low as 11, as low as 8 after the loss to Oregon. Okay.
Correct.
So now they were able to move themselves up slowly but surely, right? Over the weeks, dominating them, right? They just beat Indiana 54-7.
You're recognizing they're performing at a peak level. They're running on all cylinders.
But they were able to make those moves incrementally each week, week by week. And now guess what? And I think they performed a lot better than Cincinnati did. Navy is in their conference, right? So this is a conference game for them. And oh, by the way, what did Ohio State do? Well, Ohio State had a conference game and they shellacked them. So that's kind of where I'm looking at this is, how could Ohio State leapfrog an undefeated team? But now I'm looking at it and saying, well, Ohio State hadn't had a close game like Cincinnati had with Navy.
So let me ask you this. Michigan and Michigan State are both undefeated.
Yes.
Iowa has 1 loss. Ohio State has 1 loss. They're both ranked over the 2 teams that are undefeated. This weekend, though, I can answer this for Chris to speed it up. They haven't played the opponents that Iowa and Ohio State have. So Chris going from there, right?
Absolutely.
But now Michigan and Michigan State face off. Winner of that game, are they going to be moving up? Could they see that top 4? Could they leapfrog? This is going to be an interesting question for you on Saturday night.
Yes, it will be. It depends on
Michigan goes out and dominates Michigan State like 54-6.
Ooh, yeah. They're going to need to be rewarded for that.
Yes, okay.
They'll be rewarded for that. But, also, how would Iowa do against Wisconsin, right? I'm
worried about Iowa.
Absolutely. I am
on
too.
A bye week, that cornerback I told you, he was like their leader, that kid.
Yep.
Their center's going to have to take the leader. Their quarterback is
defense too.
The quarterback's erratic. So that's going to be the Big Ten is interesting.
I saw great.
Yeah,
great.
It's been like he said, I forget, IROC or whatever his name is, Cherie. He was saying it's been D-Rock Irish. It's been like exhibition game, and now the real season D-Rock.
D-Rock Irish, I agree 100% on that. Yes. It's going to be exciting. And then obviously some of these games are going to be in our top 5. Again, I'm just so impressed with what Ohio State has done after a loss, after they suffered a loss. And that's why I say, if you're going to lose early.
Yes.
Because it's hard to bounce back. Depending on what team you are, it's hard to bounce back if you lose later in the season. But these guys lost early and they fought their way back. And that's why I'm so impressed with them. is that they've always been able to fight back. And I'm not a big Ohio State fan because they use that the Ohio State University stuff, and I think that's a bunch of BS. But I want to give them the respect that they're due.
But you hold no bias. That's what I like.
No bias, sir. Yes, sir.
No
Absolutely.
bias.
Which means a lot of people are like, hey, why isn't Notre Dame in your top 16? I'm like, well, I can't wait to talk about that after we're done with this.
Well, it could be number 2 right here.
That's true. Let's go to number 2.
Number 2, Alabama.
Whoops, they were not. Sorry about that, Phil. They were not number 2. This is for Alabama, obviously. They actually stayed at number 2. They beat Tennessee, but in the fourth quarter was kind of crazy. Not by a lot. I mean, the score says a lot, 52-24. Says that they probably dominated. They actually didn't dominate until the fourth quarter. So, again, if you would have asked me, what did we talk about last week, I think, Phil, I had like a 1A and 1B. But right now I feel confident that, Georgia is by far number 1. So there's no comparison right now. Now, maybe currently Alabama has a bye week. Next week, and then come back and play LSU. And then if Florida does something on Saturday against Georgia, then something else may happen. But as of right now, I think Georgia is the number 1 team in the country, which I kind of
Number 1, Georgia.
pretty much. So I kind of got excited.
Spoiler alert. Well, Alex Martinez called it.
When you do a 1 and 2 like that are so close, I mean,
Right.
you have to talk about it both. But I think that right now, again, last week 1A, 1B. Now I know that after it was kind of post game going into the fourth quarter with Alabama, when you're talking about these top teams, I mean, something like that can interfere with it, right? I mean, we're talking about number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 teams in the country. I mean, now these teams have to be good. They can't be accepting losses, or excuse me, they can't have wins when they're barely scraping at it, And again, if the loss was against
Aloha, Daniel.
Hey, aloha. Wow.
Aloha.
Thank you very much. I can't imagine what time it is in Hawaii right now.
Is it 4 hours behind or 3?
I think it's like 4 days before, something like that. It's like
he's in the
like
future.
Wednesday?
He's in the future.
Isn't it like Wednesday or something like that over there?
Who wins the Michigan game? Please. I want to bet on it.
But yeah, I just think it's going to be, I mean, when you look at these teams at this level, even somebody like Cincinnati, I mean, you want to hang out with the big boys. You have to, this is what I'm saying before, playing consistent football is hard. Getting Navy's best, getting Tulane's best, getting who else is in the conference? Whoever's in the conference, getting their best every week is going to be tough. And so now that you're at that, you're at the top level now, you have to be aware of this. And so it's going to be a challenge for Cincinnati to see if they can hang with the big boys. So let me see. Any chance we can convince Zorich to put him at number 1 if
they beat Michigan State?
That would be a huge jump. That would be 8, but it depends on how, Alabama does. Depends how Georgia does. It depends on these really, really good teams too. So
it's 3:09 in Hawaii. So
there we go. So
it's 6 hours behind East. It's 5 hours behind Central Time.
Oh wow.
Yes.
So right now he's awake. He's about to go to work. Is what he's doing.
Or he might be coming home from work.
That's true. That's very true.
Oahu. He might be living on an island. It's only an island. So let's look at this week's Super 16 poll. Obviously, he ends it off with Georgia. And let me just say this about Georgia. Right now, got to give my boy Chris Zorich some major props. Even though Jim is fired up right now. Where's my Wolverines? The reality is Georgia looks like the most complete football team in the country. They have dominated the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively, with our boy there at defensive tackle. And listen, I'm totally feeling this. Let's look back at this week 8, the Super 16 poll show with Chris Zorich. Look at this. He's got his rankings right there live.
So we rewarded Iowa State after beating Oklahoma State, which they did not have a chance. They should not have what they did. And we saw Oklahoma State drop down to 15, 14. Same thing happened with Penn State. They got beat by a 2-5 Illinois team in quadruple overtime. It took them like 20 hours to play the game. They're at 14. Kentucky's at 13. We got Texas A&M at 12. Then Ole Miss, Wake Forest, and then we got the big boys. We got Michigan at 9 and Michigan State at 8. That's going to be a hell of a game. Then we have Iowa, Oregon, 5 Oklahoma, which we're really nervous about because they just have not been consistent, regardless if it's Rattler in there or Williams at quarterback. Number 4, we saw a drop, even though they actually won, but it was only 1 touchdown against Navy. And then we saw Ohio State jump up to 3 because they're showing their dominance in the Big Ten, which they have to, in which they are. And then we have Alabama and Georgia. So before we move on to the top 5 games,
yes,
just have a small Notre Dame update. Was at the game Saturday.
Someone wants you to know. What about Notre Dame? Where are they? Nate wanted to know.
Okay, hold on. So they beat, again, a team with no coach. I mean, come on, people. If we throw in a head coach there, okay, what happens there? I mean, if we're looking at how the games, what the final results are, that's one thing. But I mean, having to practice again, and again, this is a big rivalry game. But if there's no coach there, that takes something away. And then when you look at it, in the fourth quarter, USC had a chance to kind of come back a little bit. So that's the frustrating part, is that Notre Dame cannot put teams away. And then again, this is the frustrating thing, and obviously I don't have a hotline in Coach Kelly, or I'll ask him, but I make up your mind with these quarterbacks. And
right.
That's the frustrating thing on my part, is that it's not fair. I don't care who you go with. Go with if it's the person you think is going to win the game, keep him in there. And the issue becomes, the next guy is a little fast. Okay, well, if that's the case, put him in there. And if it's situational, the damn defensive coordinator is going to know who's going to come in anyway. So the idea that you're going to make a team practice for 2 quarterbacks and take up some of their offensive snap, or their defensive snaps, because they have to practice against 2 quarterbacks, is a bunch of crap. Come on. They know what's going to happen. So that's my frustration. Even though Notre Dame won, it was great down there. The fans were crazy.
Rivalry game, right?
Yes, my voice is a little hoarse. I was out there till I'm not going to tell you what time I got out to the parking lot to party. But we were tailgating all day, and that's the reason why
were you on the sideline, or were you sitting in the stands?
I was not fortunate enough to be on the sideline, but it wound up being a great game.
Yeah.
And again, pageantry and everything else, it's one thing. I don't think anybody does better than Notre Dame. It's just we have to put a better product out there. And so people say, well, hey, they're not the best. They're not one of the top 16 teams in the country for you, Chris. Sorry, they're not. They got beat by a Cincinnati team that they should not have gotten beaten by. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but you can't be ranked high if there's a minute and 30 left and you're down to Toledo. I'm sorry.
Right.
And if Toledo would have played their cards right, they could have won that game. So that's my Notre Dame rant. So let's move on.
Who does Notre Dame have next, real quick?
They have North Carolina next.
Okay. So they're probably not going to.
No, sorry. No. They have, I should know this. They have Navy.
Hold on. Navy? Let me look it up for you.
I think it's Navy. No, North Carolina. I'm sorry.
Fighting
It is North
Irish
Carolina.
football. You are right.
North
North Carolina, Saturday at 7:30 East,
Yes.
8:30 Central, then Navy on
Yes.
November 6th.
Holla.
So they're gonna have a hard time moving up in the Zorich poll show. They finish up with Virginia, Georgia Tech, and Stanford.
Again, no ranked team. So that's the challenge, right? That's the challenge right
That's the challenge.
Not
right
only
there.
with my poll, right, but when you talk about the most important one, well, let's say that the second most important one is the college football playoff ranking, right?
Exactly.
So where do they fall in there? That's the one that's going to get them to the better bowl game, things like that. So if they don't have any more ranked opponents, they got to be praying that some of these better teams or the teams that are ranked higher are going to start losing some games.
Every week he does this. He gets pumped up, fired up. He's giving you, the fan, a look inside the bald brain of the 3-time All-American. What are his games you must see this weekend? Chris, what do you got this week?
Well, you know the first one. The first one is going to be down
it's a layup.
East Lansing.
Yes.
And it's going to be the Wolverines against Sparty. I think that's going to be just a fabulous, fabulous game. I'm going to tape that, and I know it's going to be a game for the ages. But again, since 1964, I mean, this is a huge tradition for these teams, because I'm sure these teams have been playing since the Big Ten was created. And, this is kind of what Michigan needs, the state of Michigan, to have this type of rivalry. And again, when they're ranked so high, I mean, I think that's what's special about it. But if you think about, since 64, I was born in 69, so you're talking about like almost 56 years. I mean, that's kind of embarrassing at one end. So again, it's going to be an exciting game. I think another exciting game is going to be Penn State at Ohio State. I think this is going to be a big test for Ohio State, because currently they've only beat one ranked team, even though they've been dominating folks.
Yep.
And Penn State's going to be coming off of a really
bitter
bad loss. Really bad loss.
This is the measure of a coach right here. How does he get Penn State amped up for this game? That's
perfect.
Going to be the showcase there.
Now, he wins this game, I mean, all bets are off, right? It's just going to be crazy, but that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it's definitely a measuring stick for Ohio State, like you said. Because Penn State has some players, you and I and the world, I would think. Freaking Vegas is painting gold ceilings for a reason this week, because nobody was betting on Illinois. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Which again, that was a rough one.
Yes.
All right. So I think another exciting one. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but I'm kind of on the Lane Kiffin bandwagon. So he's going to be playing Auburn. I think this is going to be another big test for him. And as I mentioned before, each week is going to be a bigger test for him, because he's getting closer and closer, at least this season, to kind of his mentor in Nick Saban. So even though you've had other coaches kind of do it, I mean, he was that young punk kid who, folks weren't really too sure about. And, he didn't go right from Alabama to Georgia. He had to go from Alabama's, whatever system to someplace else, and to FAU he had to take a little different route, but he's back there now trying to prove himself. And interestingly enough, I think Georgia's taking this week off. Do they, work on fundamentals? What do they do? Florida, have a chance to prove themselves. Lost a couple of games that they shouldn't have. They would have been in the hunt, but I think the Georgia-Florida game is going to be an interesting matchup. And lastly, for number 5, I think the Iowa at Wisconsin game is going to be something that we have to look at, because, how is Iowa going to bounce back from this devastating loss against Purdue? And Purdue turns around and loses against Wisconsin, right? So you're automatically saying, so now it's going to be interesting. Wisconsin beat Purdue. Purdue beat Iowa. What's going to happen? Iowa's ranked 7th in this poll. So it's going to be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I like this. To lose to Purdue and then have a bye week on top of it.
Right.
This is a showcase.
They're feeling terrible, man. I'm surprised the guys. I'd be surprised if guys who went to class this week, man, because I'd be
for Renz
hard.
He probably had them in training camp.
I would hope so.
Like doubles. Coach Holt said, you guys, you guys are triple sessions. I'm going to be interested to see how Iowa comes out the gate there. Again, we called it here on this show. Every year, Iowa gets up there and then they lose to some obscure opponent.
Yep.
That has been the history. But let's see how they answer. Answer the call. Chris Zorich wants to see how you fight against Wisconsin, which is always a tough matchup. Chris Zorich, every week he does the Super 16 poll show. Every night here, Monday nights, 8:00. You can listen to the podcast version on every podcast streaming application. Also, do me a favor. Go over there and subscribe to Chris Zorich's YouTube channel. What are you doing? Follow him on Twitter. Follow him on Instagram. He's still learning how to use Instagram. His wife's probably answering for him, but still follow.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Next week on your birthday, Chris will shout you out, Mr. Daniel Perez from Hawaii.
Nice.
Actually, Perez should be shouting us out. He gets to live in Hawaii, for God's sake.
No kidding. God bless Daniel. That's awesome.
Also, Chris, we had an amazing time meeting each other finally. All of us coming together.
First time physically, we actually did the bro hug. We actually shook hands.
Bro hug.
Actually had a chance to hug his wife. So, we actually had a chance to see each other in person, which was great.
The family got together. We're going to end this show a little bit of taste of that weekend. But Chris, every week we get your final thoughts with Chris Zorich on this show.
And this is not really a huge issue, but and normally we've covered several things, but it's kind of frustrating when you talk about officials and their calls. Now, I was taught by my coaches, both in college and high school, on a professional level, not really, but whatever the official says, I mean, they're not going to change it. But now they have instant replay and everything else. And Phil, you have a kind of a different experience because, you've been coaching for a long time. And I know kind of the officiating can kind of get under your skin sometimes. But then I think about folks like John Wooden, who literally coached from his bench sitting down. He never raised his voice at players or the referees. And so I think that's the mentality that I would like to take if I was a coach. But the idea that some of these calls are making like larger predictions or larger results in the game. And I'm all for reviewing, but at what point do we not have a review of certain things? Because the fact that the dude going in the end zone, he did a little high step. It was almost like he wasn't sure what he wanted to do. He did like a little Dion for a minute, and he came back down and he said, "Hey, what's up?" And then he got a penalty for that.
We've seen worse in college. Here's the issue, Chris, for me, because I'm the anti-Zorich and John Wooden. I'm a freaking like an M80 going off. I would get thrown out of games to motivate my team if it needed to. Sure. The refs never really did throw me out, but I went across the line. And I knew what I was doing because I wanted everybody on the team to know I have an issue where I feel like it's being officiated unfairly. You have a job to do as an official. Pay attention to your job. Once you start watching the football and you're not paying attention and doing your job, then you're taking, again, especially in football, the Princeton-Harvard game, that was completely atrocious. I don't know if you saw that, what happened there. But the officials, even in our experience that weekend, Green Bay, Chicago, there's over 7 plays that were officiated wrong, that those officials are being investigated on. It shouldn't have to be that. That's why I feel like in this day and age, with the technology that we have,
Sure.
that a head coach has to be a presence in an official's ear that, we're not going to be able, we have to pay attention here because Atoshin or whoever, Zorich is going to be all over my ass this week. And that's unfortunate, but that's what this day and age is. And it's unfortunate because these guys rely, well, if I get it wrong, they'll see it upstairs. And that shouldn't be how you officiate games. It's so poorly officiated, and we're looking at every game. And now you're allowing judgment. Was it a what is it? Targeting? Think about these targeting things.
See, and this is the thing that kind of gets under my skin is that, and you see it more probably on the professional level with officials. So they're always talking to the guy in New York who's the head official for X, Y, and Z, right? But he's going to be partial, and sometimes when you hear him talk, he's like, "Well, and it's like, look, man, you've been doing this for 30 years. Say yes or no." But oftentimes he doesn't do that, right?
Right.
It's just kind of waiting, and because at the end of the day, I mean, he's taking care of his guys who are the umps, right? Who are the refs. So he's not. It's almost like he's already biased, right? He's already taking the side of the official, and they're supposed to be unbiased. Some guy in New York just watching plays. Oh well, I don't necessarily care. Well, yeah, you've been. Everybody knows you. You're like the head official.
Right.
You're making thousands of dollars on the side because you do appearances and you do seminars and everything else. So you want to keep that going. So you're going to say, "Hey, I'm going to be this guy." So unfortunately, even the people who are supposed to kind of monitor them are going to take the official side anyway. And for so long, I think now the refs are, I don't think they're full time in the NFL.
No, they're allowed to have other jobs. This has been a point of the
it was a huge point when I was doing the refs for the Bears. It was a huge issue for us because the NBA guys, you have full time guys there.
Yeah.
But when you got a guy who's working a 9 to 5 or a job, he's flying into the city that he's going to be playing in, probably on, let's say, Friday after work. I mean, who's to say he doesn't have a project due?
Or he had a bad day.
Exactly,
or he has bias in it. There's certain things that all of football need to change.
Sure.
And I'll just be real quick on it.
Real quick.
Antiquated chains, right? We have these chains, we roll them out, right? And John, maybe he's an official on the high school level. John Smith's holding one, and some other guy who has these Richard Simmons workout guy down in the other end, right?
Right.
And they put a little click on the yard marker so it doesn't lose its point, right?
Right.
The officials should stand at the first down mark. You can't have an old man who's out of shape running behind a guy spotting the ball where he thinks that this is so just here's the first down mark, stand a first down guy. It's $1 billion business. Be a camera on there. Let's put a chip in the football. If it crosses the line, it's like the NHL goal. And the freaking siren goes off.
Exactly.
It doesn't go off unless it crosses that line. We have this. We got to alleviate these. Jim Nantz is gonna lead us through this with Tony Romo. No, we need to have it set in stone, especially in football. They've added technology to basketball. They've added technology to the NHL game. They need to do it just to alleviate down in distance.
Sure.
We're still going to have the guy that's throwing the holding call on a big run.
Right.
He's still going to be a jackass. You're going to live with that. That's football.
Because offensive linemen never hold. So
exactly. They never hold, or Packer linemen never hold. We'll just say that.
Yeah, we saw what happened there.
Yeah, we saw that. So that, I just think, just putting a referee right at the down marker so he can get a correct, appropriate. So just think of the angle, Chris. These guys like yourself, you're a big dude. You're running down trying to tackle a guy. He's tackled. Oh, where did his knee? I'm guessing it went right here. First down.
Right.
No. It's a full yard short. If you're just standing there, you could see it. I'm in 300 section. I could see it.
Yeah.
So the chip in the ball could
On
also
both ends, I like that Thunder Girl 80. I like that. I mean, that's an idea
Yeah,
to have. Both, and
it's on
something.
both ends. It's all the ball has to do is cross the goal line. And same thing with the first down. You can incorporate it there. These things would alleviate stuff, and unfortunately, they
And
haven't
I think
done
there
it.
should also be, again, a non-partial party that's calling for both sides, because
Right.
we're hearing that coaches are afraid to make a call because they're going to lose their timeout, or they're
Right.
going to lose
Yeah, they
chance to
incorporated
throw
this
the-
challenge. You
Right.
throw the flag.
right,
No, it should automatically be fair.
right, exactly.
Wait a second, this doesn't look right. There's a eye in the sky doesn't lie. So you have one official, the replay guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got that, that camera that's floating on a
Right,
string.
exactly. If you're going to do that,
That's
hey.
gonna be the end all. He's the
follow
ref
the ball.
cam.
Right, exactly.
The
exactly.
ref cam. You can
Or put
alleviate
one of
all
those-
this stuff.
Put one of those chips or whatever in the ball. So now that one camera only follows the ball.
Yeah, it knows where the
For
ball
some
is at
issues,
all
yeah.
times. I love it.
Well,
We could fix all this, Chris.
Yes, we could. Yes, we could.
Let me
Only if
tell
we
you
had more
this.
time.
Yes. Let me tell you this. Every week, Chris or I suggest a show. Do you have a show that you want to tell people they should start watching?
I do. If you want to get really freaked out, so
Yes.
I
I
actually
wonder if it's the same show.
no. This is no. I went way back here. So this is
Oh, okay.
something where I was never a Dune fan, because it was just kind of like that weird kind of like D&D kind of space fantasy thing, which I
Yeah.
really didn't. I mean, I like Star Wars, love
Yeah.
Star Wars, but I
Yeah,
didn't
me
get
too.
into the fantasy book part, right? But
Right.
apparently that's what this whole Dune thing was, right? So I hadn't. I mean, the original Dune I think was in '84 with Sting. I think I saw it once and I was like, whatever. But
Yeah.
I went to go see the Dune that's in the movie now, and then I do my little research and I'm like, okay. So then I went and watched the original one with the Sting in there. That was crazy. But then I didn't realize that there was a series, or it was a mini series that was on during the 2000s on the Sci-Fi Channel. Now
Really?
the Sci-Fi is a little jacked up. I mean, it was 2000s, but I'm actually on episode 2, and it's really interesting because they're actually a little bit more in depth in the whole Dune story. But I really loved so this is kind of a movie / old school miniseries from the 2000s. But I think if you watch the one from the 2000s, you will definitely appreciate science fiction and the rest of the story, because at the end of this current Dune, I'm not telling you, it's not a spoiler, but there's going to be another part. Even in the
Right.
beginning, it says Dune Part 1.
Okay.
So obviously there's going to be 2, maybe 3 parts, but it really looks like a great saga. So that was my
So
show was
You're going
the
down
2000s Dune.
a Dune. So the movie was good, though.
Yes,
Good.
I really enjoyed the movie. For
Okay.
somebody who didn't know anything about it, going in totally cold,
Yes.
really, really, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, so I'm gonna check that out because
Now, of course,
I
there may
didn't
be
know.
fanboys of huge Dune people are like, oh, well, this wasn't right, and this thing wasn't right, but,
Yeah, I got to go back into the Dune history. I
Mhm.
remember that movie, and I didn't like it. It's the
Yeah.
floating guys or
yeah,
something.
it was,
I didn't like it back in the day.
Right, but this one has nothing. I mean, this one literally, and I think a lot of people just kind of like, who's the guy who did Avatar?
I forget.
James Cameron.
James Kim.
Right?
Yes.
So you talk about how he wanted to do Avatar like years and years ago, but the technology just wasn't there. The same guy with this Dune guy, he was a big fan of the books, but he
Mhm.
never felt that. And he became a director, and it was always in the back of his mind, but he never knew. He knew that the technology wasn't there yet, and it looks fabulous. And they actually, instead of using green screen, they actually shot in the Middle East, like in the sand dunes, and it was insane. They were talking about how like it was 100 degrees, and they had to have these cooling tents for the actors and stuff like that. So that's my little
There it is. Dune. Check it out. My show, I'm going to tell you, to get you ready for Halloween.
Uh-oh.
It is Midnight Mass on Netflix. Midnight Mass. It surprised me with the story and how it correlates to religion. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
It's very well written, and it kind of it tap dances on religion, and it's a horror movie. So some people might get offended if you're deeply religious. Please understand, but check that out. Speaking of Halloween, we'll be back. Bears Hour Live.
Ooh, I'm scared already. That's awesome.
TTNL will be live with the rant. Bears versus 49ers. This Halloween will be live, and it'll be the fastest Bears Hour live ever, because I got to take the kids out trick-or-treating.
I don't know. It's going to be tough. They're going to be dead. Come Dad. And you'll be like, wait a minute. And these sons of bitches, they're like, Dad, come on. We got to go. We got to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't imagine your wife is going to have to turn. She's going to have to pull the plug.
She's already put the limit. So I was like, okay, we'll get it done. It's a 12 o'clock game. Thank you.
Cut it.
Yeah, like, exactly. No. My rant will go. Well, this week, it's another great show with Chris Zorich every Monday. We start now at 8 East, and we bring you through the top 16 on the Super 16 Poll Show with Chris Zorich. Every Monday night, 8 o'clock. He'll be back next Monday night, and we'll be talking about Halloween and everything that went down over the weekend in college football. Obviously, the headliner being Michigan State. It's another football weekend coming up. I hope you enjoyed this past weekend's games and all of the shows here at TTNL. For Chris Zorich, I want to just end this show with a little look back. I put this together of all of us, including Cherie, all meeting up together. If you're a patron or a TTNL fan, or you're new here and you've been brought here by this guy, now my family, my brother here from another mother, Chris Zorich, you'll get a taste of this. Next year, we'll be doing the same thing, meeting up with all of you fans and having a great time. So I hope you enjoyed this little shout out song to end the show tonight.
Shout out Tape Never Lies. Shout out, I know you hear me, baby. Shout out, I know you see me, baby. Shout out, we gotta holler at you. Keep it 100 crew, gotta show love too. Shout out, I know you hear me, baby. Shout out, I know you see me, baby. Shout out, we gotta holler at you. Keep it 100 crew, gotta show love too. From the fans in the stands to the follows on the gram. Thanks for your support, showing love in the DM. We stay Spencer strong, fight together till the end. Now it's time to shout out worldwide friends and fam. Like
the network that keeps it real, 100 crew. So many in the world that I gotta show love to. For some this policy, the show is at its end, but for me it's so important to thank the charter members and the fans. Built the network, speak the truth through the tape. Never run around the truth, no narratives we create. Set them straight, no bubble screen on 4th and 8. Audio Jane getting nervous cause keeping them up too late. That's it, no more to say to get the shot of vital. But hurry up cause the postman's getting homicidal. Shout out,
I know you hear me, baby.
Shout out,
I know you see me, baby.
Shout out,
we gotta holler at you. Keep it 100 crew, gotta show love too.
Shout out,
I know you hear me, baby.
Shout out,
I know you see me, baby.
Shout out,
we gotta holler at you. Keep it 100 crew, gotta show love too.
the network that keeps it real.
Thanks for watching the Super 16 Poll Show with Chris Zorich. Like, subscribe, and comment. This has been a special presentation of the Tape Never Lies Network. Performance over politics.